given quite a bit of consideration to my opening thought over the last 15 minutes. I got a flashback to when we were doing Disney a couple months ago, and I remember specifically getting called on for misunderstood villains. I think we all who were here remember that vividly, the Scar discussion that I had. And it got me thinking a little bit. Villains, it is a matter of perspective. Some, folks that like to torture people for fun are clearly bad people. I think we can all agree upon that. Although maybe some folks it's just a matter of perspective. Donald Trump, some people think he's a wonderful guy. I'm pretty sure there's some of those guys. And then other people think he's a horrible human being and doesn't deserve a place up on this stage. I'm thinking more in terms, when I think villains, of back to my childhood days, watching cartoons and Skeletor and Wicked Witch the West, or those types of folks. I sort of have that a little bit more in mind when I devise these carefully crafted questions, of which I am about to embark upon. Okay, being a superhero isn't easy. People will call upon you to save their day. A lot of times it's kind of a thankless job too sometimes. Spider-Man, for example, some people don't agree with his methods. He's trying to do the best that he can within his abilities, and some folks think he's, I'm thinking of that Edward J. Jameson guy who just doesn't like him for whatever reason. Sometimes villains get a better rap. They're not held to the same standard as heroes. Which leads me to my first question. If you could wake up tomorrow and be any villain for a day, which one would you pick? Atia.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Well, in many of my speeches, I've talked to the fact that I want to be a hot mom. So, in keeping with that, I would probably choose a woman, maybe Catwoman. She wears a nice tight outfit. Okay, so just to clear the air, okay, in another life, I was not a streetwalker or anything like that, and I don't, but I'm just using her to say that she has a certain sexy quality about her. And she's obviously very knowledgeable. She's a knowledgeable villain. And so I want to mix all of those things together. My knowledge, my ability to coax people because of possibly my knowledge, or possibly because I look great in the leather outfit. I don't know. But I think that might be a good one. I'm not a villainous, is that the word, person. I do not seek to be pernicious. So it's actually a really hard one for me to come up with, but based on that, I'll just go with that. Thank you.
That leads pretty well into my second question. Villains are motivated a lot of times by power or money or what else have I here? Oh, fame. Yeah, people like fame. I want to be known for something. Just kind of curious, which of these three, between power, money, and fame, would attract you if you were to become a villain? Why would you go into the business? David.
David?
You're not David. Phil.
Phil.
Hey. Second try. Hey, there we go.
What would I choose? Money, power, or fame? Well, all three of them combined can be one. The reason I say that is the money helps you get to where you want to go in many different ways. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, it becomes fame because nobody forgets who you are. And I hear this conversation, I'm not a political person per se, but I hear this conversation about Donald Trump. Throw it in there. And there's so many different ways you can take this person. So I'll leave that alone. Now go back into your comic characters. You have the Catwoman. That someone explained the outfit. And someone also explained an outfit was the Speedo walk. So you look at everything out there, what do I want to look like? Money buys you what you want to buy. At the end of the day, again, you got the fame. Do I want to look like a villain? Or do I want to look like somebody that everybody wants to talk about? So to go back to what I choose as a villain, it's going back from Batman, is the Joker. Okay? Because you're not sure what this person's going to do. It leaves everything wide open and makes you wonder what's next. So I leave you with that.
I didn't really consider that villains also sometimes have the better outfits. Certainly Cat. All right. A lot of times there's a debate of nature versus nurture. Just kind of curious ideas on villains, how they develop the persona that they have. Do you think it has something to do with how they were brought up, or do they maybe just have a villainous gene that they were born with? Michelle, you want to take this one?
Okay, well, one villain I can think of is Scar from Lion King.
Oh.
He might have been born with that gene because they probably weren't brought up any type of negative way, because Mufasa turned out to be a great father, and Simba in part two was a great father also. But his villains came straight from being evil. He was jealous, he wanted to be king, and did anything he wanted. He even murdered his brother and even tried to get his nephew to be murdered just so he can be king. So I think he was perhaps either just born like that, because it was just the jealousy that's in him, and he just really wanted that power so much that he'd even kill to get that power. Kill people that are close to him and even manipulate his nephew also to think that it's his fault, which was very sad. That was very sad. But still, he, all his friends turned against him at the end once he tried to blame the hyenas for that it was their ideal to kill Mufasa. But thank you.
One last question. As we can tell, villains are pretty complicated characters. Although we often hate them, we can sometimes be won over by them. Their charisma, perhaps, for example. Tell of a villain you especially liked, if you can't think of one that maybe you hated in particular. Usher.
Yeah.
A villain that I liked. I really liked the Penguin. He is a mobster, and he carries around an umbrella that is a machine gun. It's a really memorable image, and he manages to be pretty imposing despite being morbidly obese, 5 feet tall. So he really doesn't have to do anything to be pretty fierce. As for and what else I'd like about being a villain, and specifically the Penguin? Well, I noticed this with Charlie Sheen, that when people expect you to be a villain, anything you do gets approval. It's like, oh, Tiger Woods, he's cheating on his wife. That's terrible. But when Charlie Sheen is doing it, oh, we already expected that. So we're just going to give you a pass on all of that. So I think that's one of the great things about being a villain.
I think we see today the villain gig actually isn't so bad after all. Not that I'm encouraging that, but I appreciate your input on the subject, Mr. Toastmaster.